Here we're looking at a book titled The Blue Rider Almanac from 1911, the cover by the important painter Vasily Kandinsky, a Russian painter, but who was often living in and working with German artists, so that's why it's in German, Der Blaue Reiter. You see the Blue Rider. You can also see that the artwork is very simple with big, bold lines. It's using wood block, an old-fashioned medium that evokes early medieval prints as well as folk art that's purposeful. Kandinsky and artists like Franz Marc were working to basically infuse art with a new kind of spirituality. There's a paradox in modernism, in art. Much of the modernist art was driven by a quest to throw away the old and bring into being entirely new perceptions and conceptions of the world. At the same time, there was a counter-drive to reject the modern world as materialistic, debased, alienating, and to instead use art as a means to restore a purer, simpler state of being. This tension is still with us today, of course, this ambivalence about modernity. And this quest for a purer, simpler, more spiritually regenerative world is the essence of primitivism, whether that's in the search for a purer society in other cultures or in the innocence of children's art. Artists like Kandinsky and Franz Marc were actually collecting children's art at this time, looking for the innocent eye. And so the textbook introduces the art of Der Blaue Reiter under the rubric of spirituality, and starting with the image of the Blue Rider associated with St. George wearing a blue cloak. So in this avant-garde, we will see abstraction, primitivism, and expressionism all merging as part of a spiritual quest. They talk about how Franz Marc is painting animals because he says they're more primitive and thus purer, enjoying a more spiritual relationship with nature. Well, based on the life of my dog, I would agree. I think my dog is purer. And Kandinsky is incredibly important because of where he takes this quest. If we look at his work in 1903, he's meditating on the idea of the Blue Rider as his spiritual emblem. His paint style at this moment is very closely linked to Van Gogh's, where we get the thick impasto with the visible strokes of varying strong, bright shades of blue against the green, the orange of the trees, so that the incredibly vivid colors convey spiritual intensity. But he starts looking at folk art and children's art because he wants that innocence and purity not just to be in the subject matter, the Blue Rider, but in the form itself, the style itself, for it to express that. So he flattens everything. The horses now sort of dance and cavort all in the same plane against the blue mountain. And we have the lovely colorful dots, but they're very decorative and abstract. The forms of human figures have been abstracted to simple flat shapes. And eventually, by 1910, he will abstract the forms and lay down the colors so flatly that we start to have what we could call a pure abstraction, where we no longer see identifiable forms. Okay, if we look closely, maybe there are some vestigial forms. Is that a human form on some kind of animal? But that's beginning to wither away. And he will actually make a statement that this artwork is supposed to be an improvisation, like a piece of music, Improvisation 28, a blending of color and line that is itself expressive. And so Kandinsky now does not speak of his art, his painting as a Blue Rider. He speaks of composition, a term that applies to painting but also to music, a sketch for a composition. He writes, color provokes a psychic vibration. This is similar to what Matisse was saying, that color is inherently expressive, not just in its associations with emotions, such as I have the blues, I'm feeling sad, but that it has its own kind of life, sensory meeting emotional life in us. Color hides a power still unknown but real, which acts on every part of the human body. That's what is meant by the feeling in the expressive color, that you actually are experiencing it through your body. Just as a violin can give warm shades of tone, so yellow has shades. Color is the keyboard. The eyes are the hammers. The soul is the piano with many strings. The artist is the hand that plays, touching one key or another purposefully to cause vibrations in the soul. This idea of pure abstraction is going to ripple out and be massively significant all through the early 20th century into the present day.